Hi, my name's Keegan, and I'm the founder of Joiner Services, and this is Engineers in Automation. On today's episode, we're going to talk with Raul Verdusco of Verdusco Consulting. We're going to talk a little bit about his automation and engineering journey. So let's go ahead and jump into the show. 2, 1, let's go! All right, and welcome everybody here. I'm with Raul Verdusco from Verdusco Consulting. Raul, welcome, and thank you for being on the show with us today. Can you give everybody just a brief little background introduction about yourself and your company?
Yeah. Again, my name is Raul Verdusco. I'm the founder of Verdusco Consulting. I guess long story short, I started my consulting company because I had an issue with my builders at my house. I had mold all through my basement floor joist, and so I was looking for a way to draw some extra money. And so I just started my LLC way back when in 2016. About a couple years ago, I decided to get serious about my business and started looking into open up I guess you say moving forward with my company. And October 11th, I took the leap and went on my own, and I've been growing since. So, and I guess a little bit about what I do and where type of work I do. Obviously, my business is consulting, but also do consulting and engineering support. And a lot of companies right now are just looking for that engineering support, just because I should say it's yeah, I say a lot of companies are just, that's what their need is.
Yeah.
Not necessarily consulting at this point in time, but that's their need.
And what type of engineering support do you provide?
Um, I can do project management and also software support, engineering support. Um, a lot of the companies right now, like for example, I did some work for SpinTech and Kellogg, and one was looking for help bringing a station up to speed, and another one was looking for obviously production support. And it's really where the needs are. And right now, I'm doing a company in the medical field. Unfortunately, I have some NDAs that prevent me from truly talking about everything. But
right,
end of the day, I'm moving around different industries, and that's something that I really enjoy. That's something that
great.
I guess you say you wouldn't be able to do as a W-2 employee.
Yeah, absolutely. And what other industries have you been working in then?
Really, the two big ones for me has been medical and food and process industry.
And is there a lot of contract work in that area? Is there a lot of business right now in that area?
I think so. I think from what I can tell, every industry is looking to automate equipment, and so that brings a pull of engineers. And from hearing from, I guess you say, the younger generation, not everybody wants to get into controls work. They're more into IT stuff and the
Yep,
cloud,
absolutely.
which is pretty big actually. But in essence, it drains away from the controls engineering, the integration part.
Yep.
And honestly, that's where a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't know it was that. Once you
Right.
get into it.
That's a great lead into my next question too, is how did you actually get started in controls engineering, in electrical engineering, in this industry?
You know, actually, it was my very first job at Hariba. They do custom design, custom work in engine testing, transmission testing. And most of that is not automated, but one of the projects they had was for the Duramax diesel engine. And I ended up going out there and working on that project. And the majority of that was automated just because the way they have the lines work, they'll bring the engines over and get tested in the test stands. And part of the job at that time was probably 10, 15 years ago, was just to refurbish, upgrade each test stand. And that's where I really learned automation and PLC work. And it was, I guess you say, intense, fun, at the same time, a huge learning curve.
Yeah. Yeah, great, great. And then so about your business then, your consulting business, what makes that different than other consulting businesses that are out there? And then, like kind of touched on a little bit. Have you worked on any interesting projects now that you're doing your own thing that you can share at
I
least?
have, especially the medical field has been very interesting, at least from my point of view. It's much different from automotive, as in the checks and balances. There's a lot of verifications and from that area, as in the medical side, and people who have done that work understand that how regulated it is and how much emphasis is into verifying, and it makes sense. You're
Yep.
putting medicine into people, so you got to make sure you're right.
Yeah.
There's no, oh, let's see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all
Absolutely.
about, you got to make sure it has to be 100%. So, and which is great, because some of the times I'm pretty sure you've been through it yourself. Some of the stuff you're like, hey, let's verify before we run this. Like,
Yeah,
let's see what
absolutely. Always.
happens.
Yeah. Yeah, good. And then, so I guess what would be some of the likes and dislikes that you've seen in the industry lately? Are there any trends that you're trying to get on that you've liked, that you've seen?
um, as of trends, I'm not sure. I mean, how should I put this? I think the trend right now is everyone's trying to automate something. I mean, um, whether
And not
it's,
everything can be automated yet.
well, they're trying.
Yep.
Like, one thing I noticed is there's a lot of cloud-based companies now that monitor hardware. For example, Siemens is right now, monitoring circuit breakers. Like, if you're trying to control a heating mechanism,
Mm-hmm.
and you always have to open and close the contact, well, that contact's going to eventually go bad. And so they try to do predictive algorithms to determine, okay, if this thing's supposed to take, let's say, 500 hits, I'm at 480 or 450. They want a software that sends a signal to maintenance department to go change that out before it goes bad, which is honestly really cool. But at the same time, it's being able to integrate all that hard or software into the hardware.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm giving a simple example. I mean, I heard of people using that type of software on doors,
Right.
and how many times you open and close that door, and okay, we have to replace the components before the door falls off.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome. Well, how about let's talk about some of your more your background. What are some of the mistakes that you've had on your journey? Now that you've been kind of out on your own here for a few years.
Mistakes? I don't make mistakes. um, I don't really consider things mistakes. I really consider it a learning curve. As of, I don't know about mistakes. When I think of it, the first thing that pops in my head is, there is no training manual on how to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
There's no
absolutely.
training manual to how to do this. Like, I'm pretty sure when you started, you were kind of
Yep.
learning as you go.
Yep, absolutely.
And so that's when I hear that question, that's what I kind of think about is, it's not really the mistakes I made. Is just, okay, you try to prepare yourself as much as you can, and you take that leap and bound, and you learn from it. And
Absolutely.
you may not gain a lot of money out of it, but you learn from it. The perfect example I could come up with is one of Robert Kiyosaki's books. He talks about how he got his first apartment, a rental unit, and he made $25 a month on it. And he really didn't do it just to make $25. He did it to learn. And so
Understand the
that's the way
process.
yeah. And that's the way I look at things. I may not make the greatest amount of money at it, but I got to learn that process.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Awesome. And with that, I think you touched on something great is learning and all about learning. Is there certain places that you go to learn, say if you're stuck with controls or electrical engineering issues or program management stuff? I know you dabble a little bit in everything. Where do you go then to learn and understand these new automation, projects and things that maybe you weren't aware of or knew about in the past?
Well, before I went on my own, I would just Google stuff. Now that I'm on my own, and for me, and probably getting a little more in depth than I should, but for example, before I went on my own, I read a lot of business books, and one things they talk about is, finding yourself a good business coach, finding yourself some good mentors, and so that's what I do. Is that I try to find engineers that I worked with in the past and go to them for
Wow.
advice.
Yeah. That's great
And
advice.
and so that's where, I mean, obviously Google still helps, but end of the day, um, having that network of people that you can call and ask these questions when you run into stuff, and especially if they've been in different industries, that really helps. And just, that's to me is more of where I use, um, where I should say, if I get stuck in something, is being able to network, being able to talk with people. And, you got to, I guess you say, kind of build a little niche of business coaches.
Yeah.
And
That's great advice. I agree with that. Absolutely.
yeah, and that way you can, when you do run the problems, you know how to handle it. Sometimes it's not, sometimes you'd be surprised where you get your answer from.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then I know on your LinkedIn profile, you've written quite a few articles there. Do you want to talk about any of those that stick out to you the most?
Um, Probably the one I thought was kind of fun is how engineers become superheroes. Now, I'll be honest with you, I wrote that a long time ago, so I don't remember what I put into it, but it was just, I thought it was a fun one because there were so many different ways of going about it. Like you could talk about, you know, um, I should put it like DC Marvel or Iron Man or,
Yeah.
and you talk about how the industry is just changing all the time. And, it's, there were so many different ways of going about it and picking out a topic. And that's what I kind of love about the articles, writing articles, is that you can kind of go any which direction you want.
Mm-hmm.
I basically try to do it off of, experience and a little bit of research, but mostly my experience, and try to, I guess you say, give the good advice. Like, these are the things that I've seen, and if it helps somebody, great. If it doesn't, then oh well.
Yeah. And we'll put a link to those then in this chat as well, so everyone can take a look
All
at
right.
those for you. So
Sounds good.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So, and then, one of the other things I always like to ask everybody is, where do you get some of your inspiration from? I know, and especially in this business, not every day is great. There's a lot of hard and trying days as well. So where do you, pull that strength from to get a little inspiration?
You know, um, Probably, how should I put this? Basically, my family. My wife's been very supportive through this process, and my family's been supportive as well. And I have, good friends that been pushing me to give this a try. And friends and family have been that. I mean, you got to have a good structure, and also, have a small team, and they've been fantastic. And I personally think I wouldn't be in the situation I'm in unless it wasn't for them.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
basically, everybody I just talked about, sum it up all into one. That's pretty much how I'm, I should say, improving myself.
Yeah, great. And then is there anything else, within the automation industry that you want to touch base on with your company and what you guys are doing?
Um, right now we're looking at updating the service page. That's something I'm in the process of doing. I'm probably about 1 or 2 months away from having a good plan for that. And I don't want to talk about everything because there's some stuff that
Yeah,
I'm
of
still up in the
course.
air about doing.
Yep. Yeah, of course.
And as you know, in business, you have to put your, I guess you put your everything in together, all eggs in the basket, and look at it. What's realistic? What's realistic right now? And then this is stuff we put on the back burner. This is stuff we shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And that's the toughest part about business is that what can you do? What can't you do?
And
And
you're the one that has to make that decision, right? There's no one
oh
else to go
yeah,
to. Yeah.
well yeah, and you also have people that are there and can help you, and that's the point of having a good team, good business coaches, um, to be able to help guide you through that process. Probably another, I guess you should say, a good example would be a book I read called The One Thing. Um, they talk about probably, well, the best example they gave was Steve Jobs when he started his company with Apple. Um, I think he only had max 10 projects or less
Yeah.
throughout the beginning. And he would get offers every week about different type of projects. And he was like, no, this is it. And that's something that, especially starting off, you want to do everything
Yep.
because you feel you can, and you're an engineer and you have the skill sets to do it. But you need to go with your niche. You can't go outside of it.
I like
Make that
that.
your foundation, and then when you're ready, you can expand. But just make that your niche.
Yeah, more great advice, man. I like that. That's good. Yeah. Awesome. Well, anything else you'd like to share with us today?
Um, you know, I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
What made you decide to do a podcast?
For me, I am very concerned with the future of automation and the amount of the lack of workforce that we are going to see here in the future. And my thought behind this was to figure out how do we get more engagement, interaction with people, especially, like how we got together and met, and then people through LinkedIn, and how do we reach our younger generation and get more people involved in the automation industry. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing this, and I'm hoping it engages people and people learn about the industry, and it just grows from there. And we can just see more young people getting involved in the future. And one of the things that's always hard is, especially, in controls, there really is no university to go to just say, hey, here, go out and everything about controls. They teach you a little bit here and there at each university, and everyone's different, but it's how do you get them at that first step in the door. Sometimes it's a stroke of luck to get in. So it's one of those where if we can just put a bigger spotlight on the need for automation in the future, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this, because I think there's going to be such a massive need.
No, that's actually a good point. And actually, that's I should put this. Thank you for doing it because I didn't really think about it. Honestly, last night I had a conversation with a couple people, and we were talking about that as in the younger generation are not really into the control side of it.
Yep.
And to be honest with you, there really wasn't like I took electrical engineering,
Yep.
but there was nothing that really prepared me for it.
Right.
And
And it's not just you, you know.
yeah,
And a
yeah,
lot of the times the people you talk to that are in the industry, they got the job through their friend, or they knew somebody, or there's no real way to especially jump into the controls side of the industry. It's very difficult.
it is. And I think, personally, I guess to say just me talking aloud again. My very first job was at Hariba, and I think that was probably the best job I ever had from a learning perspective because I found throughout my career a lot of people don't truly understand like how an oscilloscope works in a manufacturing environment, how ground really matters,
Yep.
when you're doing analog signals. And then if you have something that trips all the time, nobody really understands. Like they'll put different stuff on. It's like, okay, find out why it's tripping, where it's coming from first.
Right.
What's engaging it? How high is it going?
Yep. Yep. And
So
as a
just
weld
little things
engineer,
like
I
that.
understand the importance of ground.
Yeah. Well, it's I just find it kind of amazing that not everybody gets that education.
Yep.
Um, and I I should put this. I would love to. I don't know, maybe create a university like that or something, just so you have that education.
Yeah. Train, some sort of training, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Now you got me thinking.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that's what this is for. So I'm glad you came on and shared your story with us and the viewers, and hope everyone here enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, give us a like, a comment, a share, and don't forget to subscribe. And I look forward to having you all join us next time on Engineers and Automation. Thanks.